Hey, everybody.
Hey,
Welcome back to the Oddcast podcast.
off the record.
I'm Blackie.
I'm Erica.
And again, thank you for joining us. Sorry we didn't have a show last Sunday. We went to the Tennessee Wildman Cryptid Con. We had some friends going that were, most of you know, and that's where we got into all of this was at the last time we were there. We met a lot of people and really got interested in the subject of cryptids, and I've always been to conspiracy theories. They kind of tie together. So yeah, it was a great time. We met some friends of ours, Barry Browning and Leanne. Of course, the great Kumbo. You can't forget Kumbo. Roger and Heather Williams is squatching holler. I thought I was saying that wrong. Greg and Misty of Woodwalkers and Night Owls, and Greg's family, Wanda and Abby. Mr. Daryl Denton, the great Daryl Denton. Daniel Hamilton, who we met for the first time, is a super nice guy.
Very cool.
Send him an email. He wants to get together, so we'll do that. Verby and Barry House, good people right there. Hellbent Holler was there. We didn't get to meet Jesse and Joe, but they were there, and we were told they were good people. But there were people we missed that were there that are part of our chat and everything, and that's kind of a bummer to us because we really want to get to know everybody. And when we don't know you by face, it's really hard when all we know you through is chat. But we'll do better next time, I promise. I'm going to walk around and just ask who people are. I might not know them, but then we'll just ask anyway. We also met N.K. Davis. I've heard that name a lot through the cryptid realms, and he seemed to be a very nice guy. Didn't really get to talk to him much. He sat with us at dinner, and we talked about some of the Bigfoot stuff and other cryptids. And two of my favorite people, Mark and Rebecca Green, were there. Always pleasure to talk to them. We'll be having, Old Line Cryptids will have Mark on Tuesday to discuss his newest experience. That should be a good time. I look forward to asking questions and talking to him there. We also met Harley Owens, who's a good friend of ours, and a new guy, Matt Sieber of EastTennesseeBigfoot.org. Super nice guy. We're going to try to have him on the show here one of these days. But just overall, great conference, great people. It's, this whole community has been nothing but nice people. We haven't, her and I have talked. We haven't run into anybody that we don't like to be around or want to carry on a conversation with. Flat Rock was there. He's always,
oh yeah.
How can I forget the great Wendell was there? I mean, we got Wendell as soon as we got there. So it was an overall great time, and we're looking forward to next year where we might have a booth, maybe combine with Old Line Cryptids and Beards and Boogers, and see what we can do there.
Yeah.
Well, up till now, we've talked about mostly conspiracy theories involving weather manipulation and what was the last one? Health conspiracies, big pharma and stuff like that. And we decided we wanted to start doing some different conspiracy theories involving the cryptids. When we got involved in this community, we really were just kind of going in blind. I've always believed that there was a Bigfoot lived up in Oregon. We've all heard the tale of Patty. But once we got involved in this, we realized that it's everywhere. And since I've always been a believer, now most people that know me know that I'm a believer until you lie to me. You tell me something, I'm going to believe you until I find out you're a liar or you've lied to me. I believe Eric is probably the same way. I've been called that's a fault, but I guess I'm one of those people that still wants to believe in humanity, that there's good to us. And so when we got involved in the cryptid and we met all these people and we heard all of their experiences, it blew my mind. I think we both felt that this is way bigger. That's not just Patty and Oregon. It's everywhere, Alabama, Ohio, Pennsylvania, just about every state. There's things out there. So, but as a kid, when I heard the story of tonight's subject, the Mothman, I was probably creeped out the most because, something coming down from the air, from the sky, from trees, from buildings, with giant red eyes. And I'll describe them here in a second, what everybody says, would really scare the crap out of anybody, I think. Obviously a 9-foot tall creature coming out of the woods but I wasn't big into, hiking or stuff at the time when I was a kid. So everything was me being outdoors and, hearing this story about the Mothman. And that really kind of creeped me out. So we're going to start off. Erica's going to discuss with you the first experience, I guess the first incident involving Mothman, and tell you a little bit about the story, and then we'll go from there. And there you go. Take it away.
All right. So the first reported story was November 15th, 1966, when this occurred around midnight. And the area was Point Pleasant, West Virginia. There were reportedly 2 young married couples who were driving around McClintock Wildlife Management Area. It was reported around a World War II munitions dump area, also known as the TNT area. The 2 young married couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Mallette, reportedly observed a bird-like monster around 5 miles north of Point Pleasant. They had described seeing a tall, grayish figure near the abandoned power station entrance. It was reported as shaped like a man, but bigger, possibly a pair of glowing red eyes, big wings folded against its back that unfolded, and it took off vertically. That was the first description we found of that occurrence. The couples fled the scene, and miles down the road, they were met again by this being. And the vehicle, they fled the scene. They had been reportedly traveling at a very high rate of speed, but it was met again, which, side note, this always makes me think of Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you've not seen that movie, anyhow, back to the story. Their next step, they reported this to Mason County Sheriff's Office. And soon after, there was a press conference with widespread media coverage. And this is at which point the term Mothman was coined. Again, there was a lot of media coverage, so a lot of, research and, reports. And one of the titles was credited with that term. But they say that Mothman is in reference to the Batman comic book and the villain Killer Moth. So after that was reported, in the following months, more individuals shared their story, shared their experiences, which often occurred in Point Pleasant or, further out around the Ohio River Valley. And Point Pleasant, West Virginia, it's West Virginia meets Ohio there. So it's right on the state line.
It's always, we were coming back from, I think, our honeymoon, and we went through Point Pleasant. And it was like so cool because you're like looking around, knowing the story of, or the, the story of what happened. And you're looking around and, nothing seems familiar. Obviously, it's been whatever amount of years it's passed, but it was just neat driving through Point Pleasant with that, that story out there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was the first reported Mothman occurrence.
So yeah, I know one of the things that the couple had talked about was the Mothman kept up with them at speeds around 100 miles per hour and could dart in and out of the trees like it was nothing. So a lot of times we've read that they tried to blame it on like a heron that lives in the area, which if you look at a heron, it is a big bird and they can get really big. But it's not as big as a human. It can be tall, but not 7 feet tall, which what is described, with a 14-foot wingspan and glowing red eyes at night. In the daytime, yeah, it has red eyes, but it doesn't have glowing at night unless, it has eye shine like we know with Bigfoot and other cryptids. So that was kind of neat. Now, the description of the Mothman itself was that it's a humanoid type creature. It's been described anywhere from 5 to 7 feet tall with a wingspan between 10 to 15 feet. Now, 15 feet is a long way. And there are birds through history that have had a 15. I think the Andean condor, and I believe there's another bird. I don't want to get into it. And I don't want to sit here and think about it, but there's another bird that they had wingspans, but these weren't birds. Birds don't, fly like this. These were flying. And anyway, she said it had large red glowing eyes. And what I read, they were baseball size. Wow. And an oddly shaped head. Now, they described it as really didn't have a neck, like the eyes would have been at the top of the chest. And I think that's why they call it a Mothman. One of the reasons, because if you look at it, and if you've seen, you've seen some of the pictures, here's one right here. And this is how most of them are drawn. The big eyes, and you can see really no neck, unless the neck would be down on the chest. But this is one of the drawings. And we really don't know what the Mothman looks like, because it's, none of us have seen it. We're going by other people's experiences, and they're telling somebody, and then somebody draws it. I know I drew a Mothman a few years ago that actually kind of creeped me out, that I drew, and it was pretty wild looking. Anyway, so, just to imagine something that big following you over top of your car, stopping in the road. There's, one of the things that after the initial Mothman sighting, 5 men came out, and they were in like a county away, 20 miles away from where this sighting was. And they were working in a cemetery. I'm assuming they were digging graves or digging a grave. And they said that they saw a large creature. They thought it was a person wearing a suit, and then it unfurled its wings and flew pretty close to right over top of them. And they described, that it was huge. It was human-like. And, this is the 60s. And I know that a lot of people got ridiculed back then for the UFOs. And there were, everybody was talking about UFOs back then, but you were also being shunned by society. People were calling you crazy. These things don't exist. And, the fact that these two young couples took this to the sheriff's department to discuss this with the sheriff and what they saw, they had to realize they were going to probably get ridiculed and made fun of. And
I think that if I had to interpret it, at that point, they were in such fear, they probably weren't even thinking about the future at that point. They just wanted to report it.
Yeah. And it's, that's probably why the 5 men in the cemetery didn't come out and say anything right away, because, they're either that. I mean, there's lots of reasons. They could have been drinking out there. I'm not judging. They could have, a lot of different things could have happened, but, they didn't come out until after the initial story. And it was between November 12th and November 15th that all of these, there were people citing this. They were also citing this Mothman from, up until December. And then that brings us to what happened and why we topicked Mothman, Harbinger of Doom, because in, let me find the December 15th of 1967 in Point Pleasant. And if anybody's ever seen the movie, it's in the movie, the Mothman Prophecies with Richard Gere. The Silver Bridge collapses. And everybody said that if you watch the movie, it has, there's a character in there called Indrid Cold. That's a whole separate topic, to be honest with you. He was what they called the Grinning Man. And he would call this guy up and tell him that, 46 dead or 46 something. And anyway, on the bridge, it collapsed on the day it said it was going to collapse, and 46 people died. So everybody started to say that the Mothman was the, harbinger of doom, that maybe it was there for a reason, to warn people about different disasters that might be happening. And they really play that out in the movie. Of course, it's Hollywood. So they really played that out as it, kept giving different clues and to different things that were happening. And that stuff can't be proven that was what was going on. But in history, there have been different incidences take place that have been talked about. And I've got one real good one here. Back in 1926, and I'm going to mess this up, Shine or whatever T Dam in China. I can't speak Chinese. So in 1926, multiple witnesses in southeastern China reported seeing a strange creature hovering over the Zhuangti Dam. On January 19th, the dam collapsed, releasing an estimated 40 billions of gallons of water into the surrounding valley. More than 15,000 people are believed to have died, though a lot of the records have been lost through time or, whatever happened. But, the fact that there was a creature similar to the descriptions of Mothman there, that's kind of how it came out. And then, of course, in 66 and 67, you had the Point Pleasant incidents and others. In 1978, here, you read this.
1978 was the Freiberg mine in Germany. On September 10th, 1978, miners at the Freiberg mine encountered what they thought was a man in a black trench coat. Upon closer inspection, they realized it was a large winged creature with no visible head and glowing red eyes in its chest. The creature reportedly emitted a terrifying scream, causing the miners to flee the entrance. About an hour later, the mine collapsed, which is crazy if we just talk about that right there compared to the experience I read on the Mothman sighting, because the power station entrance. That's just very ironic. Okay.
And to be honest, a lot of people have talked about, and we'll get into more, that the TNT factory was possibly being used for government experiments. Now, I only found that in one location. It's not widely talked about, so I didn't really want to bring that up. But, when we've talked about Bigfoot and Dogman, those get talked about too, government experiments. So go ahead and go with the next one.
1986, Chernobyl nuclear disaster in Ukraine. In 1985, workers, scientists, and local residents near the Chernobyl power plant began reporting sightings of a large bird-like creature with glowing red eyes. On April 26, 1986, shortly before the catastrophic explosion at the plant, the creature was reportedly seen flying near the facility. Witnesses later claimed to have observed it soaring through the smoke and wreckage after the disaster.
Helps if I have the notes together, doesn't it? So that's, Chernobyl. We know it's the biggest nuclear disaster ever that they still have. You can't really go in there without permission, and you can only be there so long because of the radioactivity. One of the things I forgot to bring up is this picture, I believe, was from that day of the Silver Bridge, or close to that day of the Silver Bridge collapse. And what it is apparently they're bringing out that this could have been the Mothman on the Silver Bridge. Now, I don't know if he was loosening up screws or whatever he was doing, why the Mothman would be seen on top of the bridge, but maybe that was part of the warning. So that was something I wanted to kind of bring up as well, is that if that is true, then that's pretty wild. There were numerous newspaper articles as well about the Mothman through, I found quite a few. Unfortunately on this streaming platform, I can only put 10 up here, or actually 9, but the newspaper articles themselves, would have been bone chilling back then. If you saw this in the paper, well, if you saw it in the paper today, you probably would say fake news, but back then it was, people took the news serious, and it was, a big deal. So when you saw newspaper articles like this, monster no joke for those who saw it, there's the couples right there that, that's scary. And I'm assuming this is from probably Athens, Ohio,
Right.
but so many different newspaper articles describing the event of the day. And it's just a bigger article. None of us can imagine. I know a lot of people with the experience of having the experience of Bigfooting and being out in the woods hunting for Bigfoot or boogers or whatever. You don't want to be followed, and you don't want that. You don't want to be scared to go into the woods or anything like that because of these things. There's nothing really you can do. If you're interested, you have to go out and look for the signs. But something comes from the air, that's just a whole different experience. Something that can sit in the top of the trees and swoop down on you, possibly. Not that it has that we know of. But I will also say there's more Mothman incidents. In 2001, we all know what happened in 2001, the collapse of the World Trade Center, buildings 1, 2, and 7. 7 isn't mentioned here because we know what happened to 7, but there were people that claimed at the time that there was multiple people claimed to have seen a strange winged creature near the Twin Towers during the tragedy itself. Now, this has never been, I've never seen this until I started researching it. Could be for a reason. I don't know. But again, I wasn't there, so I can't deny it. I can't, it's not in me to deny what happened. It also says during the tragedy itself, some witnesses reported seeing the same entity flying parallel to the second plane as it struck the South Tower. Now, I've watched, obviously being into conspiracy theories, I've watched multiple 9/11 attack videos, and I never saw that in there. 9/11's a whole nother show. But, maybe somebody actually saw something, and that kind of creeps you out if that's true. In 2007, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the collapse of the I-35 bridge. And I think I remember this on the news. Reports of a Mothman surfaced in Minneapolis and surrounding areas. On August 1st, 2007, the I-35 West Bridge collapsed during rush hour, killing 13 people and injuring 145 others. And that was all over the news. And, that's pretty wild when you're driving underneath all these bridges or overpasses and everything and just have it collapse on you. So that's it's kind of scary to think about.
It is catastrophic. It's so sad to see. We watched a story several years ago about the Silver Bridge collapse, and it was so sad. That was in 1967. And like I said, I don't know if any of it was real footage or if it was all recreation, but just seeing, the vehicles from back then and the way they were dressed, and, it was a different world. And I remember seeing, because it was in December of that year, that in the Ohio River, there were Christmas presents floating in the river. And it was just so sad because, any of the footage I've ever seen is like these people are there in that situation and they're waiting. Is that area going to collapse that they're at? And it's just, I can't imagine that devastation and living through that.
The builders of the bridge or the city people said that it was just the bridge was so old that it collapsed over all the weight that was on there. And, that's probably what happened. But the fact that the Mothman is a part of this story and that is, that he was there to warn people. That's what's interesting about all of these. There's even one about the swine flu outbreak in La Junta, or would you say Junta?
Yeah.
La Junta, Mexico. It said in 2009, residents of La Junta, Mexico began reporting sightings of a large black creature with glowing red eyes. Witnesses claimed it stalked the town just before the swine flu outbreak that devastated the region. Some reported being terrified by its piercing screams, and one person said they were even chased by the entity. Now, the thing about all of these stories is or experiences, I'll say, is that they're from all different regions of the world. And I've heard that it's been seen in Hungary, Romania, all these other countries. Now, maybe every time it doesn't necessarily bring death or destruction. Maybe it's just seen.
Or like a sign of a premonition of
something,
a bad event.
Absolutely. Now, you don't see really any podcasts come on where people are talking to eyewitnesses of the Mothman. I'm assuming it's far less seen than maybe Bigfoot is, but it's still going on. In January of, let's go back to there. In 2017, this is a big one, and I have a picture for this. In 2017, Chicago experienced a surge in Mothman sightings. Chicago, Illinois, with over 55 reports from various locations, including O'Hare Airport and Willis Tower. Witnesses described a large winged humanoid creature with glowing red eyes. Now, further research, there's also reports from Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, Wisconsin, and Ohio that date back as far as the 50s.
Wow.
So that's before the Silver Bridge incident and before, the couples saw what they saw. So maybe this thing's been around a lot longer. What could it be? There's so much talk of what could it be. And we'll get into that here in a minute. But there has been over 161 sightings in the Chicago area overall.
Wow.
And we're not just talking area, we're talking outside of Chicago, most of Illinois probably, and maybe some of the other places out there. But in, let's go to January of 2022, a man in North Sand, British Columbia, reported seeing a chilling encounter with a 10-foot tall winged humanoid with glowing red eyes. So now we're up in Canada, and I didn't look up where North Sand is, but BC is obviously on the left coast of Canada, and it could be anywhere halfway up to the Vancouver area. So that's interesting. Hunter out probably hunting, and that's what he saw, and that would make you dookie your drawers probably. In February of 2024, and this was the most recent one we could find. My Ohio friends will like this one. A man driving near Grove City, Ohio, encountered a large brown winged creature on the roadside. Now, I don't know if it was hitchhiking or what it was doing, but apparently it was just standing there and watched him drive by. It doesn't describe how tall it was or anything like that. So that's kind of one you have to I couldn't find anything else about the story of what happened there. There's also one of a family. I don't know if she has it or if I lost it. I believe it's in Virginia that one flew along with the car that was man-sized, just as big, 10 to 15 foot wingspan. And I was trying to figure out, because they said it was flying over the car and its eyes glowed red when you hit it with a flashlight. So on that story, I was trying to figure out if you hit it with a flashlight, they had to have had a T-top or leaned out the window, or a T-top, a convertible or leaned out the window to do that. But I don't know if I'd be sticking my head out the window if something like that's flying over top of my car. Now, in 1975, John Keel wrote The Mothman Prophecies. And of course, we know that there was a movie put out in, I think, 2002 with Richard Gere I thought it was a really good movie because it kind of played a lot of the different Mothman things with Indrid Cold. The story, of course, they Hollywooded it up, but that's what they do. And I thought for the most part, it was a fairly good movie.
Yeah.
Enough to creep you out while you're watching it. And so let's get into, also a lot of the people mentioned the Men in Black. Not a lot, but some of the people mentioned the Men in Black. And one of the descriptions was these people came to their door dressed in all black suits. They had translucent skin and they didn't look human. Now, if you are in the UFO, story, if you follow UFO stories, that's a lot of the men in black are talked about having translucent skin. They don't use their mouths when they talk. They talk, what do they call that?
Oh.
Whatever.
Telepathically?
Telepathically, that's the word. Yeah. So, that's pretty crazy. A lot of people have discussed that way. So, if you ever see men with black suits on and they have translucent skin, go the other way because nobody wants to mess with them. Do you have anything in your...
What are you moving on to?
Well, I want to move on to what these might be. We all take our guess what Bigfoot is, flesh and blood, spiritual, alien. It could be all different things. And these kind of work the same way. Many people have debated what these could be, or what, obviously there's one, hopefully more than one Mothman. I can't imagine his travel and gets a lot of airline miles. But anyway, so is it a cryptid or an undiscovered species? Or a bird that a large crane. They've said it, that large crane thing. Or thunderbird from Indian lore. I've also heard that it could be an oversized owl. The description of the body kind of sounds like it. Absolutely. Yes. Yes, Jerry. Jerry said anything government go the other way. Agreed. 100%. So what is it? We can't say. None of us have experienced a Mothman or a large bird of that size. So, I'm still going with that it could be a cryptid or an undiscovered creature. You've got lots of those things that we talk about, the Jersey Devil, the Chupacabra, all these different creatures that could be undiscovered or mutated or whatever. So use your own imagination or research it. You might find something yourself. You might be that person that becomes famous for figuring out what kind of monster it is or creature it is. Is it an alien? There's some UFO stories around this, but nothing big, nothing really stuck out. The Indrid Cold story. Indrid Cold was an alien. He chased this guy. The spaceship parked right in the middle of the road, so the guy couldn't go anywhere. And this creature come out. It looked like a man with greenish skin, wearing like a tinfoil suit, which has been described back then as that's what creatures from space were wearing. Again, we're counting on the story being true. Yeah. And he spoke telepathically to the guy and said, "We mean you no harm." That's a lot of the people from the Mothman experiences claim that maybe the introduction of Indrid Cold being there in Point Pleasant area, I think it was Harbinger, not Harbinger. Anyway, it was another town in West Virginia, that maybe that was the beginning of the Mothman thing, that maybe aliens were coming to Earth and whatever. Maybe he was warning of the Mothman. Again, it's something we don't know. Is it, another person said, is it dimensional or is it supernatural? It could be both. It's unless we see it. Yeah. Let's click on that. My bad. Wait, wrong one. There we go. Could be from another realm. And that's true. That's pretty much, we talk about that with UFOs. We talk about that with Bigfoot as well. It could be there from, other places as well. Thank you, Pablo Escobar, or P. Escobar. So we don't know. And we're not going to know. And if it is a government thing, we're definitely not going to know. Maybe it is something that tells us that there's a pending doom coming. That is never going to be proven. Is it a spiritual entity or curse? Now, there was a curse put on the area by, I think he was Iroquois Indian, Shawnee leader. Chief Cornstalk. He wasn't treated real well by the locals in that community. Obviously, back in doesn't give me a year, but when Indians were still roaming, living here. Okay, when Indians still lived in the area. Sorry about that. I talked too fast. And they were torturing him, and on his deathbed, he said that, putting a curse on the town, that a lot of people were going to die. And I could go back and do probably a whole episode on that. You want them here? Take them out.
What's on?
Anyway, so, that's another thing, a curse or a spiritual entity. I don't know. Again, that's something we're not going to really be figuring out. Now, this one I can kind of go with because it's happened with the UFOs. Mass hysteria or hoax. Now, again, if you go with the hoax, it's pretty elaborate hoax for that time period. If you can look at the hoax, was the Mothman itself a hoax? Was it somebody in a costume? Okay, if it was, how did they fly the way they flew? How did they fly at the speeds they flew? If it was these people making up the story, then they were going to have to deal with the ridicule, be harassed, looked down upon. And would you be willing to do that? Because they weren't going to make any money off of talking about this. The media doesn't pay you for your story. You pay them for the story. So you're buying it from the newspaper or the midnight or the evening news. So it doesn't make sense for them to make this up. If they want the attention, cool, but it's not the attention you're going to want to get. And hysteria, I believe it could be hysteria. Some of the sightings, I could believe that theirs was original sighting, and then other people fed off of that. We've seen, from our front porch, we've seen hawks, we've seen vultures that look really big. Now we know what hawks, Mary's not in chat. Hawks and vultures look like. We know the wingspans. So when we look to the sky, we can say that's a vulture or that's a hawk. Some people that don't see those all the time might not think that. They might think that's some strange creature. Funny story is I was out with a friend one night, and we might have had a drink or two. I'm not going to say that we did or didn't. But I looked up in the sky and I said, oh my God, a pterodactyl. And I seriously thought at the time it was a pterodactyl, until I kind of came to my senses and realized it was just a heron. It was just a blue heron. But the way it was flying and the way it looked, from what angle I saw it at, I thought it was a pterodactyl, which people do still experience pterodactyls, or what they say are pterodactyls. And so, yeah, you can believe what you want to believe about all of this. I believe that it's real. Have I seen it? No. Will I ever see it? Probably not. Mm-hmm. But I will say this. I'm going to throw a plug out. Oh, and another thing I wanted to bring up real quick before we go is there's actually symptoms that come along with seeing the Mothman. And I know from the movie they kind of talked about this a little bit, but in researching it, it's more than one person has had these problems. And that's radiation style burns, which you also find in the UFO community, and inflammation of the eyes, which could also be any eye irritant, even the radiation. If they're getting the burns, their eyes are probably going to swell from looking at whatever. Mm-hmm. So that could be a form of it too.
That makes me wonder if it's related to seeing the red eyes from that creature.
That could be.
Is it something piercing, your vision, something you're not used to?
That's true. One of the things that I haven't heard is that the Mothman talks to you. Like, it doesn't telepathically. I haven't heard that it telepathically talks to people. The only thing I heard telepathically wise was, the Indrid Cold story, that he was talking telepathically. If you're interested in the Mothman legend, there is a Mothman museum. Mm-hmm. It is in Point Pleasant. We haven't gone yet. We were going to go one year for my birthday, but I chose to go camping instead, which ended up being an absolute blast anyway. So we'll get there one of these days. Now we live a lot further away than we did when we lived in Ohio. So, but the Mothman Museum attracts up to 10,000 visitors annually. And the locals seem to really like it because it boosts tourism and their local businesses make money off of it. I've seen pictures of it. It seems like a lot of people go. There's not a lot of places to stay there, but there are campgrounds if you wanted to go and stay. And it looks interesting if you're into cryptids. They got the Bigfoot Museum in Georgia that Amanda works at from Squatch and Holler. So if you're interested in all this, I highly say check it out, learn more. Again, we're only here to kind of throw things out, and then if you're interested, check it out even more.
Yeah, the Mothman Festival, it started in 2002, and it is every September, the third weekend of September. And years ago, when we were planning to go, there were very few accommodations at that time. I don't know how much it's changed, and it was pretty much kind of the early days of Verbo, I would say. So hopefully they have, more selection or closer options on where to stay.
There we go.
Oh, wow.
Bigfoot Bud says, Blackie, Erica, we have a spare bedroom and only 40 minutes away from Point Pleasant. Well, if we make that choice, Bud, we will definitely hit you and Angie up for that.
I was going to say, following, the reports I had talked about earlier, and the interpretations of what this being could be, following the reports, there was absolutely a negative side, as with any, huge news like that, or claims, as people might say. There was a lot of mocking that followed that, and this was in the late 60s. There were also even hoaxes from those reports after that. For example, some people built crop circles, mocking these people's claims.
Did they prove that people made them, or?
Well, that's what was discussed in the article. It was never anything that had been reported as, oh, these crop circles, they were just doing that for a reaction to make fun of the people who had reported what they had seen. So that's sad that people have to act like babies, even though they're adults. But there was, again, there's a positive side to it too. The Mothman Festival, there's also a Mothman Museum and Research Center that started in 2005, which is also in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. The yearly Mothman Festival, they have a Facebook page, and I believe they have a website too. In 2003, there was a 12-foot metal sculpture of a Mothman built in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. So
there's the statue right there.
And then immediately after those reports, there was more attention given to, and I don't think this was a negative thing. More people were curious about that TNT site. So a lot of people, they said that the traffic was just crazy. How many people would go to that site just to see? And I guess that maybe they wanted to see if they would have an experience or what, or just wanted to see where that happened. So that gained attention too. But, and then in 2002, that movie was from the 1975 book. But I wanted to say, if you were interested in learning more about it, you have the book, you have the movie, and then mothmanmuseum.com if you want to check out the museum, mothmanfestival.com if you want to check out the festival they have every September. They also have a Facebook page, and I believe at least a Twitter page or X page. And then you can search for, which to me is pretty cool, you can Google search for Mothman sightings map.
Oh, yeah.
And it will show where sightings have been reported. So that's really cool to look at.
Kind of like the Bigfoot map that people have shared to us as well. The Mothman Museum only costs $4.99 at my
wow.
I searched it most recent, it's $4.99, The festival this year is Saturday, September 20th and Sunday, September 21st. Everybody knows me, knows that's my birthday. If you don't, now you do. Anyway, and, again, they're going to have this year guest speakers, vendors, food trucks, live entertainment, bands and stuff. And like she said, www.mothmanfestival.com, where they'll give you who's going to be speaking there, which I saw the lineup. I don't know any Mothman speakers or scientists that would be involved in that. So, that's something we can look at if you're interested, and it'll tell you who the entertainers are. So if you're interested, I'd say check it out. I don't know. What do you people think it is? What do you think it is? What, again, we haven't got any experience except fingerprints on our vehicle. What do you think it might be?
I wouldn't call it an alien, but not far from that. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, the fact that people are getting, from seeing this thing, radiation style burns and their eyes swelling up and inflamed. It kind of,
I wouldn't call it an alien, but of all the options that we've read about, I would say like a version of an alien, because it has powers, I feel like, from the reports, not things that we can do as humans. If it does cause radiation burns, that's beyond us.
That's definitely beyond
We
us.
don't have that ability. I don't know. Like supernatural manifestation is one of the things that I read. It could be, but I don't think I would put it in that category.
It's tough to put it in any category. I mean, I've heard so many different experiences or stories, because I can go with both, because some of these don't give me an actual experience. It just talks about people saw this. It doesn't talk more in give me more info to really say it was an experience. I don't know what it could be. I would guess that it's maybe, I'm going to say it's probably alien. I mean, that's the way I kind of look at it that way. I mean, I don't know what everybody in chat thinks, but I know in talking about Bigfoot, we've all talked about the different, things we think it is. And, we've talked about portals, and maybe this thing moves through portals as well, or.
I believe that's a possibility.
I mean, yeah, I agree, Gary. It could be. I don't want to discuss that part of it. I'm going to try to keep things, the story itself, with it being the harbinger of doom, could be bad enough. But not every story or experience is involved with death. And there's just, and Bud says, alien or angel.
Yeah.
Or that's interdimensional. And yes, Justin.
Yeah, I would, yes. But I mean, Bud, what do you think angel? Why would you say angel?
Do you think because it comes down and is warning people, or it's not really warning? It's the Indrid Cold that was doing the warning, I guess. The movie makes it so confusing when you read all of the experiences people have. So the movie, obviously Hollywooded up, and you've got Indrid Cold telling, so many people are going to die on this day, or give you numbers and you figure it out. Oh, that's a date, and these are the amount of people are going to die. It's really, but yeah, okay. I will agree with that.
Phyllis.
That it warns of danger. That could be, I can agree with that. That maybe whatever it is, whether a bunch of people are going to get hurt or pass away, or one person, it could be, something like that. And yes, Phyllis, good or evil.
Put what Phyllis put about, yeah.
if you look at all the accounts, is a toss up between being good or evil.
Being or evil.
Oh, I'm assuming if you look at the accounts, is it toss up between being or evil? I'm assuming you mean being good or evil. Yeah, there you go. She corrected it. Being good or evil. And going through, I would say most of it, it doesn't do anything evil. It doesn't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Um,
But it makes me wonder why the couples reported that it was out of the TNT site. You know, it was there, but then it followed them up the road miles away. Why would it have done that?
you know, you could really go down the road and say maybe that the TNT building was a government facility producing this or whatever, and this thing was warning people to get away from it.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people, you know, when you talk about somebody having an experience like that, other people are going to go, hey, let's go down there and see if we can see it.
Exactly, because people did. People did do that for months following that report.
Right.
Lots and lots of people went.
And
Curious.
people said they saw it. So again, it goes back to what was real, who was telling the truth and who wasn't. That's where it all gets. And it's with any story, any experience we talk about. You know, I've heard since I've been a part of this group, we've heard since we've been a part of this group, hundreds of experiences. Some of them just sounds, some of them rocks being thrown out in the middle of nowhere, footprints, screams, wood knocks, face to face. You know, you can look at all of that, and it's creepy. This, I think, is the same thing, the same style of thing. You know, you can read to it, whatever. You want the mouse?
No, it's okay.
Oh, okay. But I still, yeah, Jerry, I'm still in that realm as well. That the government's created something. Yeah, it's like a gargoyle dog man big. It scares some and others it don't. I mean, okay, Gary, why do you think it scares some and others it doesn't? Do you think because, you know, a gargoyle, we know what gargoyles are. You know, most of us have probably seen the old movie Gargoyles from the 70s, which creeped me out as a kid for sure. And then we see gargoyles they put on our buildings to ward off evil spirits or whatever the gargoyles are there for. You know, if I saw one of those alive, I would have a definite brown pants moment.
And then Jerry, Old Line Cryptids, y'all need to check out that channel. If
Great
you have
channel,
not.
check it out.
Another one. Why are there another comment by him? Why are there so many reports of cryptid sightings around government facilities? Which, you know, we just talked about one, but what everybody was talking about a minute ago, I don't think I'll ever forget it. But last week in McMinnville, someone said, I don't remember who it was, but they were talking about Bigfoot, and they're like, you'll see it if it wants you to see it. And maybe that's the case with Mothman. I think that could be the case with, you know, really any cryptid that we talk about or related. I think that, and that's probably interdimensional, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you and I just walk out in the woods and we can't see it, obviously it doesn't want us to see it.
But you would consider that interdimensional, right?
I think so, yeah.
That's what I think.
I mean, you know, we've heard all the different ways people have had experience with Bigfoot and how 1 minute it's there, the next minute it's gone. You know, we're talking about creature that weighs in excess of probably 900 pounds, 800 to 900 pounds. They don't tippy toe away. People don't see them leave. So there's a lot of, you know, there's a house here in Davenport that has gargoyles on brick pillars. You know, go through old towns. A lot of the buildings had gargoyles on them. Even in New York City, a lot of the older buildings have gargoyles on all four corners. And I believe it was there to protect from evil, even though these things look evil. I don't know what the history is behind a gargoyle.
Right. I would like to learn more about that. But go ahead, what you were saying.
Oh, I'm just saying, but a lot of the old buildings had gargoyles, you know, protecting the buildings is what I assumed they were for.
Well,
it's not really go ahead.
sorry, you just finished.
It's not really like an art form I think people would put up for any, but it was there to protect. It's just like for us,
That's what I was going to
we
say.
put crystal. We found all these geodes, and we take the crystal and we place it around our property or our house, just hoping that crystal's supposed to be good. So
And protect.
So we put that around our house. Now
I think gargoyles are supposed to protect
I think
from
that's-
evil.
Yeah, I think that's what it's supposed to be.
But we were at a funeral home earlier this year, and Chad pointed out like the foundation of this funeral home had geodes.
So the brick pillars, the bottom half of the brick pillars, so I would say 3 to 4 feet, were all geodes, unbroken
wild.
geodes.
It was very neat, but it made me wonder. I never looked like how old is this funeral home? Does that really mean something to them? That seems to me like there was a reason that they did that.
Okay, Virax, any thoughts on quartz? And I believe there's some people in here that can tell you about that Virax, but I know that we have some friends that are big into crystals and quartz and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that, and I don't know exactly why, but crystal is great to have around. A lot of people wear crystal around their necks. It's supposed to help with the vibrations of your body or something like that. I don't remember if anybody can tell me what it was that the Hollins Hunt Camp, what's underneath that.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that was crystal or what that is, but if you can remind me of that, because
there was a quarry not far from there, right?
But apparently it was underneath of us. And when we were sleeping the one night, I woke up and she woke up. I woke up to a vibration. And somebody else described that they've had that happen as well. We also woke up to something we think hitting our car, which the rest of Hollins is quartz.
Okay.
So there you go. I mean, the quartz has energy. It has power. There's no doubt. And I think that's why a lot of people wear it as necklaces and why you can, I don't know how many other people that have been to the Hollins Hunt Camp or even the forest we were at. I won't name it because I know a lot of you know what it is, but, and Gary said he brought some home that we felt, I felt vibrations there. And in the middle of the night, I woke up because I felt like it was vibrating. So it could be something. But as far as the gargoyles, I've heard that they're protectors. Quartz is a protector. So you never know. But I don't know. What do you all think? I mean, I've seen a few alien comments. I've seen a few things. I mean, do you think it's like a Bigfoot, like a Jersey Devil, like these types of things that appear and disappear? Is it people seeing something like a crane? Because that would be a little more easy to explain, I guess, but it would be the biggest crane you've ever seen.
Yeah, but could you ever imagine a crane with red eyes?
Well, they do have red eyes, as a matter of fact. This certain type of, not a crane, heron, has a red eyes, but they don't glow. And I don't think, and I don't know for sure if birds have like
I know what you're talking
or
about with the
Bigfoot. They don't have reflective eyes. So I don't know. It's interesting to think about for sure. But so we're gonna kind of start getting a little more. We're still gonna do our conspiracy theories because these are conspiracy theories as well. And we're going to kind of throw in some other cryptids, maybe ones that aren't as talked about as much. And then one of these days I'd like to do a really big Bigfoot show and talk about that and have some speakers on about it. Because again, her and I haven't experienced, well, we've had the handprints on our car, and maybe our car being shook by one, whatever. And you have also possible orbs.
Yeah, the same trip.
So it's all interesting to me. I think these things have been drawn. These things have been talked about. whether it be Mothman, whether it be Bigfoot, whether it be Chupacabra or Dogman, or, you know, all these creatures from, you know, drawn on Egyptian as Egyptian cave walls, pyramid walls are inside of them. I think these people saw something and they drew it. And through history, it's all been erased. And, you know, we're finding out now, apparently the Smithsonian's admitted that they have had giant human bones and were ordered to hide them or get rid of them. So, you know, maybe these things are going to start coming out. We don't know. We know that it could be another, it could be another look at this, not this type thing.
Oh, distraction.
A distraction. Yes.
I think, Gene, that's a really cool idea. Gene thinks orbs are remote viewing.
People remote viewing using orbs. Is that what you're saying? Or is that, you know, like I know a friend of ours, Jessica Jones, is that her name? From the now I can't, Cryptid Huntress. She's a remote viewer. And, you know, that's something I could ask her if maybe that's something that, you know, orbs are from remote viewing. It's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Gene. You always have good questions.
I know.
And Xerax always has great questions. Actually, tonight, everybody's had great questions. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to our moderators. Thank you, Gary. You're always interactive, and we appreciate that.
Right. So I know this was a little bit different for us, but it was a story that's, or an experience, whichever way you look at it, that's always, you know, it was my first, as a kid, this was the first thing I'd heard of. I think I'd heard of Bigfoot, but it was, of course, it was Patty, and nowhere else did I ever hear of a Bigfoot. But the Mothman, you know, and how much people talked about it, how many pictures I saw of it in the Time magazines and all the other things, you know, the drawings, it really interested me. And I thought if for our first cryptid, that's what we would talk about. We're going to try to hit some obscure cryptids. I know Jerry from Old Line Cryptids mentioned the Snallygaster. I just love the name. There's a few areas up in that area, or a few creatures up in that area we'll probably talk about. We're probably not going to find a whole lot of information about it, but we'll talk about it. I guess we'll end here tonight. Thank you for listening.
Yes. Thank you for joining us.
If you haven't subscribed, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, we're not that professional. I don't want to be that professional. I mean, I would love to have a production department and all the fancy machines to do something like that, but I want to keep it real. And I want you people to come in and just feel like, you know, we're all just sitting around chit-chatting. Yeah. And that to me is, you know, if I could throw a fake fire in here, have a fire going, and we're all sitting around the fake fire, I'd be cool with that. Mm-hmm. I can't afford to fly you out, and I'd have all you come sit at our house, and I couldn't afford that either. Anyway, so thank you everybody for being here. Thank you, mods. Next Sunday, I know we skipped last Sunday. Next Sunday, I believe, is Labor Day.
Labor Day weekend. So we won't have a show.
We won't have a show.
Everybody will be so busy, I'm sure.
You know, whether it's picnics, whether it's boating, camping, go out Bigfoot hunting, go out Mothman hunting, go do that. Have fun. Enjoy your families, enjoy your loved ones while they're still here. And from us to you guys, we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Big love.
Yeah.
Thanks, Greg. Greg gave us that saying. Big love, and everybody enjoy your rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.